Ladies, I want to talk about something incredibly important today, something that impacts each and every one of us, whether we realize it or not. The people we invite into our lives shape who we are, who we become, and ultimately the energy we live in. But sometimes we allow the wrong people into our hearts and homes. Today, I want to help you recognize the signs of those who are not meant for your journey. The ones who, whether knowingly or unknowingly, create chaos, steal your peace, and hinder your growth. Bad people have a unique way of draining your energy in ways that often go unnoticed, especially when you're deeply invested in the relationship. They demand more from you than you can give, emotionally, mentally, and sometimes even physically. You find yourself feeling exhausted, not just in moments, but persistently. It's the type of exhaustion that makes you question where all your energy went after spending time with them. These individuals seem to take and take, leaving you feeling empty, like a cup that's constantly being poured out but never refilled. You might think you're doing the right thing by offering your time, attention, and love, but if the relationship is one-sided, you'll eventually find that there's little left for yourself. In these situations, the drain isn't just about giving, it's about the emotional labor required to constantly navigate the relationship. You find yourself walking on eggshells, unsure of what mood they will be in today, or how their unpredictable behavior will affect your state of mind. Your thoughts become consumed with their needs, their desires, and their emotional states, while your own well-being takes a backseat. Over time, you may start to feel like you're losing yourself in the process. The person you once were full of energy, optimism, and self-love begins to fade, replaced by someone who is too exhausted to even think about what makes them happy. What's often subtle about this energy drain is how it happens slowly. You might not notice it at first, but the more you give, the less you feel replenished. And because you care about them, you keep giving, convinced that things will get better, that they will recognize your effort. But here's the truth: when someone is constantly draining your energy, there's a pattern of imbalance in the relationship. You might feel guilty for wanting more support, more love, more recognition, but your energy is your birthright. It's not meant to be siphoned away by someone who isn't reciprocating. You might even start to notice physical signs of this drain, feeling tired all the time, waking up with no motivation, or struggling to focus on your passions and dreams because your mind is too occupied with their needs. That kind of fatigue isn't just the result of not getting enough sleep. It's a deep soul-level exhaustion that only occurs when you're giving more than you have to give and getting nothing in return. In time, you may start to dread the moments you once looked forward to. Instead of feeling alive, you feel like you're being pulled into a dark corner where there are issues, demands, and toxicity. Remember, you have the right to protect your energy. Your time, your spirit, and your emotional health deserve respect. If you find that someone is continuously draining you without consideration for your needs, it's time to pause and reassess the relationship. Are you both investing in each other equally? Are you both contributing to each other's growth and well-being? Or are you simply a source for their endless need, leaving you with nothing in the end? Know that you have the power to choose not to give to a relationship that leaves you empty. And when you start recognizing the drain, you can start taking steps to reclaim your energy and give it back to the things and the people who truly lift you up. When someone constantly plays the victim, it can be a subtle but deeply damaging pattern in a relationship. They seem to always find themselves on the receiving end of hardship or injustice, and while it's natural to experience difficult times, the key difference here is how they respond to adversity. Rather than taking responsibility for their actions or seeking solutions, they consistently blame others, the world, or circumstances beyond their control for their troubles. Every story, every situation is spun to fit the narrative of their victimhood. They rarely, if ever, acknowledge their part in the conflict, leaving you to pick up the pieces and bear the weight of their emotional drama. What happens when you're constantly around someone who plays the victim is that you end up feeling guilty for things you didn't do, taking on the burden of their emotional weight when it's not yours to carry. It creates a sense of imbalance in the relationship, where you're always giving, always comforting, always solving, while they continue to take but never truly offer anything in return. They lean on you for support, often demanding it without consideration for what you might need or how their behavior might be impacting you. It's not just about helping someone through a tough time. It's about becoming their emotional caretaker, often without being asked. This pattern of playing the victim also stifles your own growth and healing. When someone refuses to take responsibility for their own actions, it sends a message that they don't believe they need to change. They may tell you that the world is against them or that they're simply a product of their environment, never acknowledging the role they play in their own struggles. Over time, this can be incredibly draining. You feel like you're carrying a weight that isn't yours, one that keeps you stuck, unable to move forward because you're constantly distracted by their need for attention, sympathy, and reassurance. Furthermore, this behavior keeps them from ever growing or learning from their mistakes. Every time something goes wrong, it becomes a moment to further entrench their victimhood, rather than an opportunity to reflect, learn, and improve. When a person refuses to take responsibility for their own actions, they effectively sabotage their own healing process. Instead of becoming stronger through adversity, they remain trapped in a cycle of helplessness, waiting for someone else to swoop in and make things better. When you are constantly faced with someone who plays the victim, you might start to feel like the villain for pointing out their behavior or encouraging them to take responsibility. They'll make you feel bad for wanting them to rise above their circumstances and will often use your concern as a weapon to manipulate you into doing even more for them. This can lead to feelings of guilt, frustration, and confusion. It's hard to know where the line is between being a compassionate friend, partner, or family member and enabling their behavior. But the truth is, you can't save someone who isn't willing to save themselves. No matter how much empathy you offer, no matter how many times you bend over backward to help, if they refuse to take ownership of their life, the cycle will never end. You can't pour from an empty cup, and you can't fix someone who doesn't want to be fixed. And while it's important to be there for people when they are in need, it's equally important to know when to step back and let them take responsibility for their actions. Recognizing this pattern is essential for your own well-being. If someone constantly positions themselves as the victim in every situation, it may be time to step away. It's not about abandoning them in their time of need. It's about setting boundaries that honor your own emotional health. You deserve to be in relationships where both parties contribute, where both individuals are willing to acknowledge their flaws and work toward growth. Being in a relationship with someone who plays the victim keeps you stuck in a cycle of enabling and rescuing, preventing both of you from thriving. You are worthy of relationships that empower you to grow, to rise, and to embrace your full potential. It's okay to stop trying to fix someone who isn't ready to take responsibility for themselves. It's okay to preserve your own energy, your own peace, and your own growth. When someone manipulates your emotions, it can feel like a silent storm that wreaks havoc on your sense of self. These individuals have an uncanny ability to twist your feelings, to play on your vulnerabilities, and to make you question your reality. They do this subtly at first, testing the waters with small manipulations, but over time their behavior can become more pervasive, controlling, and damaging. Emotional manipulation is often disguised as concern, love, or care, but beneath the surface, it's a strategy to control and dominate your feelings for their own benefit. At its core, emotional manipulation is about one person gaining power over another by making them feel guilty, confused, or unsure of themselves. They may make you feel like you owe them something, that you are responsible for their happiness, or that you should always put their needs above your own. They might guilt trip you into doing things for them, telling you how much they've sacrificed for you or how much they've been hurt by your actions. By doing this, they place the responsibility of their emotions squarely on your shoulders, making you feel obligated to manage their happiness, comfort, or security. This isn't love. This isn't healthy. This is manipulation. What makes emotional manipulation so insidious is how it often starts small and then gradually becomes more intense. It could begin with something as simple as them making you feel bad for wanting to spend time with others or pursue your own interests. You never have time for me, they might say, even though you've made a conscious effort to balance your commitments. Over time, these emotional outbursts can become more frequent, more intense, and more complex, leaving you questioning your own actions, your intentions, and your worth. They will twist situations, making you feel like you're the one at fault for things that are out of your control, for actions that aren't yours to take responsibility for. They also know how to make you feel like you're being unreasonable or too sensitive. If you try to stand up for yourself, express a need, or voice your discomfort, they will minimize your feelings. They may dismiss your concerns by telling you that you're overreacting or that you're too emotional. This tactic serves to silence you, to make you second-guess your instincts, and to convince you that you're somehow flawed for having boundaries or feelings of your own. Over time, you begin to internalize these messages, believing that your needs and emotions are less important than theirs, or that you're somehow unworthy of expressing your feelings. Emotional manipulators are often incredibly skilled at using your love for them against you. They will exploit your empathy, making you feel like you're betraying them or being cruel if you don't comply with their demands. They might say things like, "If you really love me, you would do this for me," or "I don't know what I'd do without you." These statements are designed to make you feel indispensable to their well-being, even if their well-being is entirely dependent on your sacrifices. They play on your guilt and your desire to be loved and accepted, creating an unhealthy dynamic where you feel like your value is only determined by how much you give. The reality is you are worthy of love and respect without having to prove your worth through constant self-sacrifice. One of the most dangerous aspects of emotional manipulation is how it erodes your self-confidence and sense of reality. Over time, you may start to doubt your own judgment. You might second-guess your decisions, wondering if you're being too harsh or too demanding. This creates a cycle where you become increasingly reliant on the manipulator to tell you what's right and wrong, which leaves you feeling confused, powerless, and insecure. You lose sight of your own truth and begin to view the world through their distorted lens. The toll this takes on your emotional and mental health is not just immediate but long-lasting. Constant manipulation can cause anxiety, depression, and a sense of helplessness. You might find yourself becoming more isolated, withdrawing from friends and family because you feel like no one else can understand what you're going through, or because the manipulator has convinced you that you are unworthy of support. They isolate you, making it easier to control and manipulate your emotions without outside influence. Recognizing emotional manipulation is the first step in freeing yourself from its grip. Trust your instincts when you feel like something isn't right. Pay attention to how you feel after spending time with someone. Do you feel drained, confused, or guilty? Are your boundaries constantly being violated? Are your emotions being used against you to make you feel responsible for someone else's happiness or behavior? If the answer is yes, then it's time to take a step back and reevaluate the relationship. You deserve to be with people who respect your feelings, who honor your boundaries, and who encourage your growth, not ones who manipulate you into sacrificing your peace for their comfort. It's important to remember that you don't owe anyone your emotional energy if they're not offering the same in return. You are worthy of respect, of being heard, and of having your emotions validated. Emotional manipulators may make you feel like you don't deserve this, but the truth is you are worthy of a love that lifts you up, not one that drags you down. You have the power to protect your emotional well-being, and once you recognize these toxic behaviors, you can begin to set boundaries, reclaim your voice, and rebuild your sense of self. Your emotions are yours, and no one has the right to manipulate or control them for their own gain. When someone constantly criticizes you, it can feel like you're never good enough, no matter what you do. These individuals seem to find fault in every little thing, often focusing on the smallest details while completely overlooking the positive aspects of who you are and what you bring to the table. Their criticism doesn't come from a place of genuine concern or a desire to help you grow. Instead, it's designed to undermine your confidence, make you feel inferior, and slowly chip away at your self-worth. The more they criticize, the more you start to internalize their harsh words, convincing yourself that they must be right because they never seem to have anything kind to say. One of the most damaging aspects of constant criticism is how it starts to alter your self-perception. When you're repeatedly told that something about you is wrong, whether it's your appearance, your actions, or your ideas, you begin to question your own value. The words might be subtle at first. You could do better. You always mess things up. Why can't you just get it right? But over time, these comments build up and you start to believe them. The person doing the criticizing might justify it by calling it constructive feedback or saying that they are just being honest, but there's nothing constructive about making someone feel small. In fact, the more they criticize, the more they place themselves in a position of power over you, making you feel like you're always falling short and that you need to change in order to be accepted or loved. These critical comments may also be disguised as advice or suggestions, but when you take a step back, you realize they're not truly offering ways for you to improve. They're simply pointing out flaws without providing any meaningful guidance. This creates a toxic dynamic where, no matter what you do, you're left feeling like you can never measure up to their expectations. Their criticism becomes the standard by which you judge yourself, and over time, you may start to make decisions based on what they would think or say rather than what feels right for you. Constant criticism also has a way of diminishing your achievements. When you share something you've accomplished or a goal you've achieved, instead of receiving support or acknowledgement, their first response is often to find something wrong with it. That's great, but have you thought about doing it this way? Or, I think you could have done it better if you. It's never enough. This can be especially disheartening when you're looking for encouragement, validation, or even just a moment of celebration. Instead, their response leaves you questioning whether you should have done more, or if you're even capable of succeeding in the first place. Additionally, criticism from these individuals isn't always limited to your actions. They often target your character, your personality, or your very essence. They might make comments about who you are as a person, your beliefs, your values, your way of thinking. Instead of offering support or a differing perspective in a respectful manner, they attack who you are at your core, trying to shape you into something you're not. This kind of criticism is particularly damaging because it undermines your sense of identity and makes you feel like you're not allowed to be yourself. They'll tell you that you're too emotional, too sensitive, too strong, or too independent, all with the aim of making you feel like you need to change in order to be acceptable. What often makes constant criticism so difficult to deal with is the way it affects your ability to trust yourself. Over time, you start second-guessing every decision, no matter how small, because you're always wondering what the critic will say. Their voice becomes so loud in your head that you lose confidence in your own judgment. Every choice becomes a potential source of their disapproval, and you begin to live in fear of making a mistake, not because of the actual consequences, but because of the constant judgment that comes with it. This leads to a cycle of self-doubt where you feel like you're walking on eggshells, constantly trying to meet someone else's impossible standards. The effect of constant criticism extends beyond just your self-esteem. It can also impact your mental health. Over time, it can lead to feelings of depression, anxiety, and helplessness. The weight of their words becomes unbearable, and you might start to feel like you're not worth the effort or love of others. You begin to isolate yourself from people who would otherwise offer you support because you feel like you're never good enough for them either. Every interaction becomes a reminder that no matter what you do, you'll always be judged, always found lacking. It's exhausting, draining, and it takes a toll on your emotional well-being. Being around someone who is self-centered can feel like you're constantly revolving around their world with little regard for your own needs, desires, or feelings. These individuals tend to be so absorbed in their own lives, their own concerns, and their own experiences that they rarely take the time to acknowledge or empathize with what you might be going through. Everything is about them, their accomplishments, their struggles, their thoughts, and their emotions, and they expect the world to revolve around them. In their eyes, you exist not as an equal, but as a tool or a bystander to fulfill their needs. Their focus is always inward, leaving little room for consideration of anyone else. At first, their self-centered behavior might seem harmless, even endearing. They may come off as confident, determined, or simply busy with their own goals. But over time, the signs of their self-absorption begin to show. They monopolize conversations, only talking about themselves without ever taking the time to ask how you're doing or showing interest in your life. When you do share something about yourself, whether it's a personal triumph, a challenge, or an everyday occurrence, they may quickly shift the focus back to themselves. They rarely celebrate your victories or acknowledge your achievements, as they are too focused on their own. This self-centeredness often extends beyond conversations. They expect your time and energy to be dedicated to them without giving much in return. They may reach out to you when they need something, be it emotional support, help with a task, or simply someone to listen to them. But when it's your turn to ask for help or share your feelings, they are nowhere to be found. They might act indifferent, distracted, or even dismissive of your needs. They will make it clear that their problems are far more important than yours, and they expect you to drop everything to accommodate them, even if you're dealing with your own challenges. Being with someone who is self-centered also means being part of a relationship that lacks reciprocity. These individuals rarely check in on how you're feeling, how your day went, or if you need support. They are so wrapped up in their own experiences that they don't even realize, or worse, don't care that your needs are being overlooked. You might feel like you're giving endlessly without receiving anything in return, leaving you emotionally drained, unappreciated, and invisible in the relationship. They may even make you feel guilty for wanting attention, care, or acknowledgement, as if it's selfish to have your own needs when they are constantly asking for yours to be put aside. Another sign of self-centered behavior is the lack of empathy. These individuals rarely understand or care about how their actions or words affect you. They might make hurtful comments without thinking twice or act in ways that disregard your emotions. When you confront them about how something they did or said hurt you, they often respond defensively, dismissing your feelings or even accusing you of being overly sensitive. It's as if they cannot or will not see beyond their own perspective, and they expect you to just accept whatever behavior they dish out, no matter how damaging it might be. In their eyes, their experience is always the most important, and your emotions are secondary at best. This behavior can be especially painful in close relationships where vulnerability and mutual care should be the foundation. When someone is self-centered, they make it nearly impossible to connect on a deep, meaningful level. Emotional intimacy requires mutual understanding, support, and the willingness to share space with each other's feelings. But in a relationship where one person is focused solely on themselves, it becomes one-sided. Your vulnerabilities may go unnoticed, your desires unmet, and your emotional needs ignored. They may even turn your vulnerabilities into ammunition, using your deepest fears and insecurities against you to maintain control of the relationship. In addition to emotional neglect, being with someone who is self-centered can leave you feeling unimportant and undervalued. You might start questioning your worth, wondering why you're constantly giving and giving but never receiving anything in return. Their actions may lead you to believe that you're not deserving of the care, attention, and support that you so willingly offer. You may even begin to downplay your own worth, trying to fit into their world rather than demanding a space for yourself. But the reality is, you deserve to be seen, to be heard, and to be loved just as much as they do. You deserve a relationship where both individuals are valued equally, where care and support are mutual and not one-sided. In navigating relationships with people who embody these traits, those who drain your energy, play the victim, manipulate your emotions, constantly criticize, or remain self-centered, it's crucial to recognize that your worth is not defined by their actions or perceptions. You deserve to be in relationships that nurture you, uplift you, and encourage your growth. True connection comes from mutual respect, understanding, and the ability to both give and receive without feeling depleted, unappreciated, or controlled. While it's natural to want to help, support, and care for others, it's equally important to protect your own emotional well-being. Boundaries are not a sign of weakness, but a way to honor your self-worth. Never allow yourself to be in a position where you're continuously giving without receiving, where your feelings are invalidated, or where your presence is diminished to make room for someone else's constant demands. Remember, you have the power to choose who you allow into your life and what kind of energy you will tolerate. Protect your peace, guard your heart, and prioritize relationships that are reciprocal, respectful, and most importantly, empowering. Your value is intrinsic, and you deserve nothing less than love, respect, and mutual support.